right, Shalom Israel. First and foremost, as always, I would like to give all praises, honor, glory, respect, and blessings to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Bashem, Rachaha, Quadash. Salutations to the Lord's elect on the four quarters of the earth, pushing His truth and sincerity while patiently waiting for Yahweh Shai's return, and double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, which have taught us everything we know through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. And I'm going to be doing a response video to a video that was uploaded by the Hopeful Elect 3, as you see right there. Okay, and this is a video that pretty much says it all. Conditioning people to taking the mark. Fair use, fair use, fair use. So go ahead and play this video. See, as if they allow me to play the video. Well, I don't want to. Right now, I'm not connected to the internet, but basically in this video, okay, as you've seen, there was a lady who had a chip on the back of her eye, and she was able to read letters based on some laser that was projecting from the machine to the chip, I think. I'm not 100% certain, but she was able to read again that way. You know, a person, you know, there was also reports of a person who couldn't walk anymore, you know, couldn't use his arms. And there's been plenty of reports coming out this year on it, of a guy who basically, he couldn't write. And I think he was paralyzed. So the only thing he could use was his brain. And basically, after getting a brain implant, he was able to sign his name and basically use the mouse pointer on a computer just by the power of his own thoughts. So, we're definitely living in a time where the so-called elites are getting ready to make this chip mandatory. And they're already, you know, pushing this digital ID thing. You know, they're pushing the whole digital ID agenda, which they started it in UK, but I also heard rumors that they're also rolling it out in Utah. Okay. And as time progresses and as time passes on, these devils are going to get more and more harsh with their draconian decisions. They're going to come down with more draconian legislations, more bills, and basically everything to make your life more harder to live without being directly linked into the digital beast system. You see, everybody who already have the microchip that's linked into the beast system, they have nothing to worry about except for the nuclear warheads that's going to rain down on them from the skies of America, because that's where the main place of judgment is going to take place at, and if they don't get hit by a nuke, they're going to be taken out by one of the laser beams that's coming out of what the world ignorantly calls UFOs. Because when the Messiah returns, he's coming back in what the world calls a UFO, and he's going to be in the biggest UFO up in the sky. So we're literally living in those times. Okay. So the video's not going to play, obviously, because I ain't got no internet connection. What I would like to do is let's go to Revelation 13. So I already started a breakdown on this. This whole chapter is really good, okay? And something else I would also like to go to is the book of Thessalonians. So I don't know why it took me to Revelation 15. We're going to go to Revelation 13. Right? And I'll start at verse 11. Revelation 13, verse 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and spake as a dragon. Now, the two horns like a lamb is talking about the bipartisan system, which was set up by Esau, the biblical Edomites, which will be the self-proclaimed white man. And in this bipartisan system, what do you have? You got the Republicans, and then you have the democracy. Okay, the lamb part is talking about these high-ranking government officials. They like to come off on the public as if they are these God-fearing, God-loving people who want nothing for the best of the people. That's an example of them, like a lamb. Speaking in that which people think favors them and the general public. So yeah, two horns like a lamb, but he spake as a dragon. He spake as a dragon by the different decrees that they come with. And he can speak as a dragon by coming down with legislations that makes it mandatory for you to have to do this and that in order to live in their society. Okay? An example of these devils speaking as a dragon is the fact that they pass these decrees making it possible for ICE agents to go into various different cities here in the United States of America and indefinitely detain so-called Negro, Latino, and Native Indians. Okay, under the guise of we got to fight crime. Crime is getting out of hand here in America, and you know what? You YNs and you young spigas, talking about you spics of the Latino tribes, y'all really brought it upon yourselves with your behavior and how you conduct yourself in society. Okay, so you really brought it upon yourself. This whole situation of you having to deal with ICE and all of these ridiculous and superfluous gang violence going on. In these different so-called black communities. So you know what? Good for you YNs, man. Y'all want to smash and grab. You want to come together in crowds to do things that are evil. So now you have to deal with the sword of the Lord, which is the so-called white man that's coming in the form of ICE agents as well as the National Guard. Okay? Because when words can't teach, adversity will. And the Lord is going to bring adversity upon every single one of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Indians who want to just go around and do evil. You want to stand on the block all day and smoke and talk about getting bitches and you know, effing this man's woman and you know, beating up somebody and taking their possessions because you ain't got it. You know, nothing but complete unruly behavior. You are a prince of the living God. A Hebrew Israelite man is a prince of the living God, which is where you get Yashar Allah from. Okay, in which when you look up, you know, the word Israel goes back to the Hebrew word Yashar Allah, which means he is a prince of God, because the Hebrew word for Yah is he, right? Yashar, Shar, the Hebrew word for prince is Shar. And then you got Allah, Yashar Allah. He is a prince of God. So if you're an Israelite man, which will be a so-called Negro, Latino, and Native Indian man, you're supposed to be carrying yourself on this planet like a prince of the living God, who is Yahweh. We are all sons of Yahweh. But on this side, in this generation, not all of Israel are as Israel as it is written, because our people ain't fearing and serving the Lord right now. What our people is doing is they're walking around, they're living unruly. They're still going to clubs every night, partying, holding house parties, mass adulteries, lots of murders going on. You're still getting tattoos. You wearing dreads when you've been told multiple times to cut your motherfucking hair. You an Israelite man and you got long hair. You're not keeping the vow of a Nazarite. So why the fuck do you got long hair for? Because it goes back to that effeminate ass, that little weak, effeminate ass spirit. So, you know, that's why judgment is raining down as waters. You know, and judgment is going to keep coming, man, because like it tells you in the book of Psalms chapter 7 verse 11, Yahweh is angry with the wicked every day, man. And the Lord is tired of seeing our people do wickedness with no reverence to do right, because he even tells you in the book of Genesis why the Lord flooded the whole earth. Okay, the Bible tells you that it grieved the Lord. It grieved the Lord that he had made man. So you can tell that the Lord was not okay with wicked acts that was going on during the time of Noah. One moment. You know, excuse me. I got camp videos playing in the background here. 1, 2. Bear with me for one moment. So I'm going to continue on where I last left off at. Okay. Revelation 13 verse 12, and the exercise of all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. Okay, and the first beast is talking about who? That's talking about the Roman Empire, which you can find that in the book of Daniel, the 7th chapter, where it speaks about the fourth beast. And out of the fourth beast came what? A little horn. Okay. And pretty much this little horn, which grew out of the fourth beast, speaking great words. This little horn is talking about America. So this little horn was a prophecy of a greater Roman Empire that would be established after the fall of the first one, which was predominantly ran by Japheth, the Etruscans. They were all Japhetic people, swartzy, okay, very dark-skinned people, until the Edomites came along. And basically, the Edomites, which the self-proclaimed white man, he came along, killed off the swartzy Japhetic people who ruled Rome, and then basically Esau took on their customs, and the Edomites took on the customs of the Etruscans and their heritage, and basically the Edomites started calling themselves Romans. So from there, the most powerful empire back then would be born upon the face of the earth with great rule and much wicked oppression. And that was the ancient Roman Empire that was ruled by Edomites. And their main style of weapons was what? Their main style of weapons were iron swords. Okay, they fought with iron swords, which in the Roman Empire you hear about the great iron teeth. Well, the great iron teeth of the fourth dragon, it was Romans military. Okay, they all fought with iron weapons. So it says, and he exercised of all the power of the first beast before him, and caused of the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And you got a lot of people right now on this planet, especially here in America, that's wandering after the fourth beast. And now you may ask, well, how are people wandering after the fourth beast? Because you got people out there protesting who wants America to go back how it was before the year 2000. You know, you got people who really want America to be great again, but the so-called right president is not in office. So anybody who's out there protesting because of the misdeeds of America, you're out there protesting because you're looking for a sense of normalcy, then you're wandering after the beast. You're begging the so-called elites for everything to go back to normal, which normalcy, so-called normalcy, ended in the year 2020 when Crown Royale 19 took its toll upon the earth. Ever since then, there's been a sense of things going back to normalcy with you people. And guess what? Nothing has ever went back to normal. And it never will go back to normal. Because the Lord does not want it to go back to normal. Okay? The Lord is against Babylon, as it is written. So this sense of normalcy that you people speak of, it does not exist. And if you think that getting a chip inside of your body and being released into a 15-minute city is normalcy, just because you can sit down and rest while owning nothing and being happy, then you're out of your motherfucking mind. Because now you're completely tracked, you're controllable by the US government, and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, Yahweh Shai said it best. I believe that's in Mark. Is that Mark, the 8th chapter? For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world but lose his own soul? You people are willing to lose your own soul over things going back to so-called normalcy. I'll tell you what real normalcy is. How Israel was ruling upon the face of the earth when King David and King Solomon were kings of Israel. That's normalcy. Where people could actually live in peace. Cows could be cows without having to worry about being cold or annihilated from burping or passing gas into the atmosphere. You know, that's normal. You know, bees going around pollinating the earth, doing their thing. No chemtrails. The water was the rivers and the waters and the ponds were so pure and clean that you could literally drink from it and be revitalized. Water was in its pure form back then, during the time of King David and King Solomon's rule. Water was in its pure form. Okay? Not just water, food. Okay? Did you know that one grape from a cluster of grapes used to be the size of a basketball? It's not normal for a grape to be the size of your quarter in radius and in length. That's not normal, man. You know? Like, you watched the movie James and the Giant Peach, right? Well, guess what? Peaches were actually that big back in the ancient world. A grape was the size of a basketball. Could you imagine how big a fucking peach was? So yeah, hey, but again, Esau make these movies because he knows, okay? He knows about food and how the earth, you know, stopped yielding its force when the Edomites got into rulership. Because the Lord told the serpent in the Garden of Eden, which the serpent was a descendant of the wicked ones, right? He told the serpent in the garden, like, you know, cursed be the earth for thy sake. So the earth is not even yielding its full force like it's supposed to. Okay? So, what we're seeing here is that the Edomites are in rulership. Okay? And during the Renaissance period, emancipating from the Dark Ages into the Renaissance period, because we once ruled Germany, Russia, Europe, South America, North America. We had rule over Moscow, parts of China and Japan. So during the Renaissance period, when the Edomites started to rise up into power again, according to biblical prophecy, what happened? We started to be taken out of power because it was Esau's time to rule. And during the Renaissance period, a lot, and I mean a lot of our dark-skinned images of the disciples, okay, the apostles, Yahweh Shai, the great ancient prophets like Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, you know, Habakkuk, Jonah, all of the prophets of old, the dark-skinned images of the Messiah, who ignorantly calls Jesus. You know, the dark-skinned images of King David, King Saul, Paul, Peter, all of those images were destroyed during the Renaissance period. Why is that? Because the Renaissance period is all about the rebirth of the Roman Empire, which would fulfill the prophecy of the little horn that rose up upon the fourth beast in Daniel, the 7th chapter. And the Roman Empire, the fourth beast, received a deadly wound when the Roman Empire became the Holy Roman Empire. How did the Roman Empire become the Holy Roman Empire? When our people started taking rulership and control of the Roman Empire. That's when it became the Holy Roman Empire, when our people started becoming Caesars in the Roman Empire. Okay? So that's that wound right there. Because the Holy Roman Empire did not rule over its citizens like the Roman Empire did, because the Roman Empire was ruled by Edomites. But when our people started to gain rule into the Roman Empire, things changed, So in Revelation 13 and 12, and he exercised the power of the first beast before him, which causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. So now you know what that deadly wound is going into. The deadly wound. The deadly wound was healed because the Roman Empire has been rebirthed back into the earth. Okay, all of its standards, its harsh laws that were put in place, the tax stations, taxing the hell out of its citizens, especially the Israelites who were being considered citizens of the Roman Empire. The Edomites really did not want Israelites living amongst the Edomite citizens. But the Caesars of Rome allowed Israelites to live among the Edomite Roman citizens. They allowed the Israelites, which are the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native Indians, to live amongst the Roman citizens, as long as the Israelites were paying tribute money to the Romans. So that's what was going on. All right, Israel. Some Israelites were making that good money and was paying tribute to Rome. So it's the same thing today. Why do you think the Edomites are allowing us to live in their society? Because just like back in the ancient world, Jake was working hard and he was paying tribute money. Today, in today's time, tribute money comes out of the taxes of all your checks you get every week or every 2 weeks or every month or however you get paid. That's where your tribute money is coming out of. Tribute money, is just Rome's way of taxing people. So that's what we got going on today. Okay. So let's read verse 13. Revelation 13, verse 13. It says, "And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men." And how did he do that? Well, it started with him dropping atomic bombs like Skinny Boy and Fat Boy. When these two atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it literally put the whole world in fear, because America was the only country on the planet around that time with weapons like that of mass destruction. So America became a country that was to be feared by every other country on the planet, man. So no country after those two atomic bombs, no other country on the planet was thinking about starting wars or fights with America. Okay? And ultimately, the Lord gave them the knowledge to make those weapons of mass destruction so that eventually they could make nukes to bring about the end of their own rulership. And we're literally living in that time where fire is going to come down from heaven, but this time it's going to be by the millions, by the hundred of millions. Because Babylon, which is the United States of America, is going to be hit with 200 million nuclear warheads. And that's according to biblical prophecy. Biblical prophecy that nobody can escape from. Not unless you're of the elect. Is it all just traditional? Please. I'm not gonna have any time. So, bear with me for one moment. Then I'm paused. Okay, so Revelation chapter 13, verse 12. In the exercise of all the power of the first beast before him, and cause of the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men. Okay. Now, as it is written on earth as it is in heaven. On earth. Salakia. Let me rephrase that, okay? Yeah, he make fire come down on the earth. And that fire came via those two atomic bombs, Big Boy and Skinny Boy, okay? Or Big Boy, Fat Boy, and Skinny Boy. Okay, and it says, and deceiveth them that dwell on earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. Now, I would like to go into that word miracles, because it is through these miracles that these people are being deceived into taking the chip. Okay. Now, I wish I could look up the word miracles, but in order to use, in order to go into the definition of the words in the Blue Letter Bible, you got to have an internet connection. Okay, but I can tell you this much. Let's look up. Let's go to 2 Thessalonians. Okay. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Okay. Let's see. 2 Thessalonians 2 verse 6. And now ye might know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, which will be his prophets. Okay, the Lord speak by the mouth of his holy prophets. and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. And when you go into this word, this term, lying wonders, it goes back to the Greek word pseudos, which is where you get pseudo from. And when you go into that word, okay, the definition of that word pseudos, it means a sign, you know. I believe it also says something along the lines of exceeding the normal course of nature, or something along them lines. Because what is the natural thing for a person who is blind? To pretty much stay blind until death, right? But then you have this devil who you know is coming up in here with his lying wonders.
So my is that private long-term folks, they're just not acting.
All right, so you go into that word, lying wonders. It is the Greek word pseudos, which is where you get pseudos from, which pseudos means false, you know. And again, as I've stated earlier, you know, pseudos goes into the false science. These are different philosophies. And really all this pseudos, these lying wonders that Esau's presenting to the world right now in today's time, it all really goes back to the Garden of Eden. Okay? It really goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden, okay? Those forbidden fruits, that's those lying wonders, those forbidden philosophies that we were not to learn of. Okay? Because see, you learn of these forbidden philosophies and, you know, you end up bugged out, confused, you know. You end up diving into some shit that you will not be able to get yourself out of. Because the RFID chip, well, that's a part of the knowledge from the Garden of Eden. You know, cars, airplanes, you know. The knowledge that the world knows today, it all really goes back to the Garden of Eden. Okay? And you notice I've mentioned forbidden fruit earlier, right? The forbidden fruit is not talking about actual fruit, you know? I mean, because if that's the case, right, people should be able to eat a orange and then fly up in the sky. Oh, look, I ate a grapefruit. Now I can levitate, I can move couches using telekinesis. No. So, you know, now while fruit does revitalize the body, it does give your body strength, it can't make you do things like fly or teleport or, you know. You can't eat a fruit and then one day suddenly know how to build an airplane, you know. You're not going to be able to eat a fruit one day and know how to make a car. You're not going to eat a banana one day and then suddenly your eyes are going to be open to how to make a computer. So the moral of the story is that in the Garden of Eden, it was not actual fruit that Adam and Eve was eating. Okay? The fruit in the Garden of Eden, the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden, which Eve and Adam, I should say, because the woman was first deceived. Okay? And then she led to Adam being deceived. So, you know, Eve and Adam eating the fruit in the Garden of Eden, okay, led to them diving into a whole slew of forbidden practices, okay? And when you look at today's time, you have all this technology, right? The makings of all these technologies, but guess what? It's still tied to forbidden practices because technology is being used to make people walk again. It's being used to make people see again. Okay, you got all these phones and cell phone towers. All they do is destroy life. Okay? You got bees dying over chemtrails. And what do the chemtrails go back to? Forbidden practices. You know, you got airplanes that run on gas and shit, you know, forbidden practices. All this technology comes from the forbidden knowledge that teach you how to do these things. And radiation will always destroy the body, man. Okay? And if technology was to exist, there will be a right way to utilize it. Because, see, the so-called white man, according to Habakkuk 2, verse 4, he can't do right. Okay? He cannot do right. So the only thing he can do with the knowledge of the technology that he have is wrong. And that's why you got cell phones that keep you from going to sleep, that mess with your brain waves. You know, you got cell phone towers that emit radiation that can affect the metals in your body. It can affect the insect life. You got all these factories and all these different power plants that do nothing but poison and destroy the earth. So the technology we see today around us, from semi trucks and all, you know, cars, you know, electrical grids, you know, war jets, bombs, all this goes back to the forbidden knowledge that we were not supposed to learn of. Well, how come we didn't make these things sooner? Because the scriptures tell you that time happeneth to all men. And it wasn't time to have airplanes during the Roman Empire, you know. It wasn't time for us to have cell phones during the reign of King David. Now, while we had much similar things back then, like I'll give you an example. People will argue that TVs did not exist back then. Yes, they did. The Bible calls them the Urim and the Thummim. Okay? The Bible calls them the Urim and the Thummim. You know, people would say, well, what about cars? Cars did not exist back then. I mean, well, what the fuck do you think a horse on a carriage or with a carriage attached to it was back then? You would have the man who would, and I say man because women weren't sitting on no horse back in the ancient world, okay? A man sitting on the horse was a man thing. Okay. Nonetheless, you know, if the man was really wealthy, he had land, he had substance, he would have his own carriage. And in his own carriage, may I say, it was the reason why it's called a carriage, because he can carry multiple clients or multiple people. In his carriage, he would have his woman, maybe his friends, you know, his friends, his woman, you know, their friends, their daughters, you know. And basically the horse would carry them inside the carriage to their next destination. So a car is no more than your modern day horse with a carriage attached to it. You know, buses, elephants are your modern day buses. Okay. If you could tame an elephant and then get on it and ride that elephant could elephants are really strong, you know. One elephant could pull a carriage of at least about, I would say, 20 different people. So a elephant with a carriage attached to it, that's your modern day buses, okay? Your rhinoceros, that's your modern day semi trucks. So there's nothing new under the sun. Back in the, you know, we may not have had light bulbs back then, but you look at some of those Chinese or Japanese lights where they have like the fancy design on it. We would have something like that, except it'd be fire burning inside. That was your modern day lights back then. Okay? That was your modern day lights back then. So there's nothing new under the sun. So knowledge, knowledge, rather if it's righteous knowledge on the right hand side or forbidden knowledge on the left hand side, has always been around. Just like poison warfare, how poison was used in warfare to poison people. Well, poison warfare is still around today. Okay, it's the food we eat, the air we breathe, the water we have to drink, the plastic we have to touch to drink the water, to get the chicken out of the package, to pour the cereal into the bowl. You know, so, Lion Wonders Sudas goes a long ways back, and that's pretty much the point that I am making here. This forbidden knowledge that we know today, it all goes back to the Garden of Eden, okay? Even when the serpent told the woman that she could have authority and power over the man, okay? That really didn't start until we went into captivity under the Babylonians. And then even under Greekish rule, you had women with authority. And then it really just got out of control under the Roman Empire. So, because, the Roman Empire was ran by a bunch of FAGGOTSs. So, okay, Lion Wonders. So we go into that word miracles, right? I don't know if it's going to be the same Greek word or a different Greek word, but I know those miracles in Revelation, okay, they're all tied to the miracles that's being shown through these people who have the chip inside of them. People who couldn't read because they were legally blind. Vision was blurry, but now they can see because they got a chip on the back of the retina where their eye is at, rather if they couldn't read or write, because they were paraplegic, if I'm saying that correctly. It could have been paraplegic. It could have been, but then Esau attached a chip or a device to their brain. Now they can move their arm, They might have been spending their life in bed, not being able to move. But after getting the chip, now they can sit up, they can move their neck. Some guys who got the chip in their brain said that they was able to control the mouse pointer on their screen. You know, a monkey who had a chip in his brain was able to play ping pong and understand what he was actually doing. So the miracles are out there, and these devils are exposing themselves more and more, okay? That man of sin, like it tells you in 2 Thessalonians, he's being revealed daily, and he's going to continue to be revealed daily because we're living in the time of Jacob's trouble. And as information goes out, more and more people get exposed. So with that, I'm going to say shalom. It's on to the next one.